if I traded it all.
Welcome back. We're doing a live radio show. My next guest is Michael Van Vleck. He's been on the show before. Michael, you're with Denali Real Estate. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do and what we're going to talk about today.
Sure, of course. Happy Friday, everyone. If you're on the freeway, you know
Watch out.
it's
You
awful.
might get in an accident.
Oh, it's awful. Back to back to back. I think everybody's going to the fair, right?
Oh, the fair. Okay, that's what it is.
Yes. Well, we like to think so. Well, Denali Real Estate is an Arizona-based real estate firm specialized in real estate for investors. So that could be properties that are for rent or some sort of fix and flip or something where they're trying to make some money other than occupying the home. We do help people that are buying and selling homes, but primarily our clients are those who invest in real estate.
Okay. Now, for anywhere in the, because you have property, I know that it's
Everywhere.
throughout the valley. Okay, so you can help anyone from anywhere.
Correct. I mean, we don't do things that are sort of farther out. We do cover Maricopa, Queen Creek, Surprise. You know, it's pretty much everywhere.
Let's talk about the people who are thinking about investing but not sure whether they should do that. Why should people invest in real estate?
Well, I think anytime somebody, at least what I tell people who I talk to that are in this position, I think the first thing you have to say is, what are my options? Real estate is just one bucket of many options. It could be stocks or bonds or, real estate is considered an alternative investment, alternative to stocks and bonds. But there's lots of things that could be alternative. Gold is an alternative. Timber, if you invest in timber, is alternative. Oil. So anybody who's in that position has to say, why should I invest in real estate versus, my stock portfolio or bonds? For me personally, there's a couple of reasons. One is, I like things that are tangible.
Easy money would be the one thing that comes to my mind.
Not
somewhat.
Necessarily. Any investment has risks, so it's not necessarily easy. Investing in real estate does have risks, but you have to weigh how you perceive those risks. Everybody perceives them differently. So somebody might think stocks are really risky compared to real estate, or vice versa, and it just depends, really, because within those asset classes, there's a whole bunch of stuff that it could really be. I mean, just because you're investing in stocks, there are different kinds of stocks.
Right, but here's the thing about real estate, and when you're investing, you could be pretty much anyone who, if you have the money and you have somebody who's knowledgeable that can even help you, if you're a first-timer or if you're new at it, whatever, you can get into it. Whereas,
Absolutely.
It's a little bit, you need to have a little bit of money, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it just really depends. I mean, I'll give you an example where you don't necessarily need money. If you have a VA loan, you can buy, this is just an example, you can buy up to a 4-family building. If you live in one of the units, you can buy that as a residential property and have no money down if you use your VA. So my first property that I bought was a 4-family in California. I had a partner. He was also a veteran, as well as I am. And so we did have VA eligibility. We didn't use it, but it is an option. We could have bought it using a VA eligibility, no money down, up to four units. So if it's a duplex, a triplex, if you're planning on living in one of the units, you can absolutely use VA. They only require you to occupy the property for 1 year.
So why did you get into it?
Well, for me, it was a different reason. So I looked at it as this was a great way for me to build a long-term retirement portfolio. When my first property, I was 26, 6.
That's what I meant by that. Yes, that's awesome.
So that was 15 years ago. So and we still have that one, and we've built from there. But for me, it was, time is on my side, so we have the ability to buy it. And over the period of time, there's been fluctuations in the market. They've gone up and down, but I think overall our equity positions doubled. So.
How does somebody get started?
Well, the first thing that I think that you have to do is decide, why should I invest in real estate versus stocks or bonds? And I think there's some very big things, at least for me, that I think are important. One is I do believe that real estate for a particular person can be local and it's tangible. So as opposed to investing in a stock, which you go on the internet or call your broker and they buy it for you, you don't really have anything. Whereas a piece of real estate, you can drive by, you can go pat it on the siding if you want to, but it's tangible. It's there. So it can be a good investment. There's a couple other things too, though. As opposed to investing in stocks, as an example, stocks are based on the company, its culture, the people who work there, the officers. You hope they're honest. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Maybe they're taking money, maybe they're not. And
maybe it's going up, maybe it's going down.
For me, investing in stocks, knowing the CEO is getting paid $100 million a year, it's bothersome for me. So, but that's just me. So the other good thing about real estate versus, say, stocks and bonds is you can use leverage. So leverage can be in your factor. You can borrow. So you only have to put a certain percentage down to actually buy the whole shebang. So whether that's 10%, 20%, or more, in some cases nothing, but it doesn't take as much money as you might think. There's different ways that you can structure it where you don't, which we'll talk about as we move forward. There are some limitations, though. I don't want it to make it seem like it's pie in the sky. Keep in mind that real estate is illiquid, right? As opposed to a stock or bond, you can usually convert it into cash very fast. Whereas a piece of real estate, you got to put it on the market, and it takes a little bit longer. So it might take 30, 60, 90 days to get your money out. Mm-hmm. So, it's one of those things. You shouldn't consider real estate if you're trying to get your money quickly.
Right, but if you're investing and you're doing it where you're having it like, someone living in that house and renting it, that's like residual income in a way, correct?
Yeah, the great thing about it, this is how I look at it, is...
How do you look at it?
Well, see, here's the thing, is I look at real estate as it's a hybrid security. So you get something like a coupon payment that a bond will give you a coupon payment. They'll pay you periodically so much. So a rental property does the same thing. Rent is like your coupon payment. Every month the tenant hopefully sends in the rent, and that's your coupon payment. But real estate also has what I like to think of as an equity option, right? You have equity, and it has the ability to grow. So while you're getting your coupon payments through the rent, you also have this upside in equity.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about,
Sure.
what some of the reasons might be. But I want to ask you how Denali will help those people out there, especially, there's people out there that are seasoned, mm-hmm. and not. So how do you help them? Before we go to a break, I want to get that out there so I can give you some of some of your information.
Sure. So the best way to begin the process, really, we can help you, but the thing is that you have to, we like to take a big, broad picture, right? So a big picture looking down and say, okay, how do we begin? So the first thing that we do, really, is to sit down with folks and say, what are your goals and objectives? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And the money that you're investing, not to get too wordy, but what's the utility function? What's the function of that money?
What do you want out of it?
Yeah, is it to pay your kids' college? Is it that you want a retirement? Is that you're more of a speculator? Is it that you want some diversification because you have too much in stocks or too much in bonds? So we need to know what that reason is, and the reason is that's going to determine how we go about this, and because some real estate investments may not be appropriate.
Okay.
So that's number one. Do that first, and then we're off and running.
All right. So how you do that, you'll do a consultation with them.
Absolutely.
All right. Find out exactly where you're at, what do you want to do with it, and where do you want to go with it.
Right, because, and the thing is that some people go into it with certain expectations, and they recognize going through that process that perhaps it wasn't what they expected, or they thought they were doing one thing, and as it turns out, they realized that maybe it's not an appropriate investment for them, and, we can kind of steer them in a different direction.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to give out your information. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk further about the next step that they take. Okay, their number is area code 480-626-4062. The website is Denali. It's spelled Denali, Arizona. realestateworld.com. And again, that number, 480-626-4062. They do free consultations. What you want to do is find out what you want to do and where you want to go with it, if you want to be in the stock market completely or not. And I think a lot of people right now today are thinking they don't want all their money in the stock market.
Oh, absolutely.
So hang on tight. We'll be back in just a minute.
If I traded it all,
So we're back. We are talking with Michael Van Vleck, and he is the owner of Denali Real Estate. We've been talking a little bit about investing in the real estate world, and you can help people with that. Let's talk a little bit more about that. And what do they do? How does the process begin?
Sure. A couple things you need to know before you get going. Arizona, like every other state, has some very specific real estate things that you should know. So, for example, if you're married, it's a community property state. So if you are married, you can't simply go off and say, hey, you know, I put $50,000 in the backyard and buried it, and my wife doesn't know about it, and I think now it's time to take it out of the yard and invest it in something. You can't do that. I mean, you certainly can, but the reality is that your wife will have to know that you're investing in real estate. So as a married couple, there's ways in which, so for example, if it's an inheritance type money and you want to invest in real estate, there's ways that you can have your spouse not participate in there through a disclaimer deed process, but they will have to sign something. So having said that, it's good if you are married to have this discussion with your spouse if you're considering investing. You'll need to decide how are you going to hold title, right? Is it together? Are you creating a company to do this? I mean, it's all... If you haven't done it before, it seems insurmountable, but it's actually really easy stuff that we can have done for somebody in a couple of days.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy. So those are the first things. A lot of people don't know that if they have an IRA account, they actually can buy real estate in their IRA account. So I've told that to a number of people, and most people think, well, my IRA offers me, you know, these choices, and I pick from there. Well, the reality is that if you do certain things, you have to have it to the right place. With a certain custodian, but they will facilitate you being able to buy real estate in your IRA. So we do have people that are clients of ours that buy real estate in their IRA. It's an easy process for us to be able to manage for them, but it is a tool. So especially people later in life, they get to a point where they're 50, they start to have assets in their IRA, 60, 70, and they're like, I want to do something besides stocks and bonds. So that is an option. Hopefully people have their IRA when they're 20, right? They start...
Don't you wish?
Yeah. So after that, I mean, I would say, how do you get in? I think I can remember this. The first time I bought my first property, it seemed like there was all of this knowledge that I had zero of, and I didn't really know where to begin. For me, what I did is I had a partner. He was a competent person I've known a very long time, and we simply divided up the tasks. We said, look, we're going to need a lender. You do the lending stuff, and me, Mike, I did certain things, and we would just meet once a week to kind of reconvene and share knowledge. And that made it to where we could manage the process better because there was so much information we didn't know, and we were more concerned about what we didn't know than anything else because we did make mistakes. So that was the hope, right? But once you do that, I think it's important that you do homework, right? You need to do research. Now, 15 years ago, when I first invested, there wasn't a lot of information on the internet. It was just sort of beginning to explode, and so we had to go to the library and do those things. Now you just go to Google or Yahoo or whatever and type in a few things, and you're on your way.
Okay.
It's very easy, and you can get a wealth of information on real estate and markets and things like that. So there's things that you do want to consider. So for me, when somebody says, I'm thinking of investing in real estate, what should I do? The first thing I always say is, are you willing to invest close to home? It's always easy to invest in your own backyard. It's tangible. You can drive by it. There's a lot of things you can do. You know, Uncle Joe, who's a handyman, can help you out, whatever it is. So proximity is always key. But some people, they're not in a place that's very good environment for real estate. And there's a couple things we'll talk about in a few minutes that relates to that environment. But proximity is a big key. The other thing to consider is demographic trends. Where are people moving? You know, population in the United States is not stagnant. There are shifts that are going on. I always consider, you know, Sun Belt states. So Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Florida, places that people want to move to. I can tell you, for example, I had somebody who came to me and said, Mike, I heard Detroit has amazing risk return. You can get great returns in Detroit. And I said, well, sure, but let's think of the big picture. More people want to move from Detroit than actually want to move to Detroit. Not anything against Detroit, but there's a reason that you can buy a home for $15,000 or $20,000. There's a reason, and that's because nobody wants to move there.
Nobody wants to live there, right? Well, everybody wants to live somewhere like here. Look at it outside today; it's fabulous.
Exactly. Even though, yeah, exactly. Aside from the freeway, but other than that, I mean, the weather's great. So I consider that's a big thing. I mean, California is sunny, but that's going to fall into the next thing, which is
the water.
Taxes. So this is another thing you should consider. Like, as you consider different places to invest, you should consider what's the tax environment. I own a couple properties in California, and I just paid the taxes today, before I came to the show, and they're astronomical.
That's why you're a little tongue-tied. That's okay.
They are. And on top of that, they have other fees, state fees that you have to pay if you're a non-resident on top of that. So there's a lot of fees and expenses. So even though California is sunny and people love it, it's not necessarily a good environment that you would necessarily want to invest. Having said that, it's also not a landlord-friendly state. So as opposed to Arizona, it might take you 3-4 months to evict somebody in California, whereas here, 30 days and you're out. Yeah.
Okay.
So, which is a good thing. So the other things to consider is the local economic environment, right? So how is the local economy? One of the reasons I've steered clear of Las Vegas, for example, is very dependent upon the entertainment industry. So it correlates very well to the overall economy in the United States. When we're in more of a recessionary period, Las Vegas doesn't do so well. People, are out of work. They might move. So those are things that I tend to avoid.
With your company, when people are listening to this, you're right now giving them food for thought, right?
Yes.
But they can actually, a lot of people that listen to this show, Mike, they don't want to do the work.
Of course.
That's the bottom line.
Who does?
Most people don't want to do the work. So would you be able to do that for them?
Absolutely, and this is all part of the discussion. I think more this discussion today is about, hey, these are the things to consider. Not that you need to know necessarily all of these things, but it's important, which is, as we segue into the next component, is about finding the people that can get you there, right? You don't need to know all this stuff. You just need to know where you can get the information or who you can get it from. Right,
and the right people and somebody who has experience, that's someone like you. His phone number is 480-626-4062. It's Denali. Arizona.com, and that's what I meant exactly by that. There are a lot of people that come into money. There's a lot of people that have money. There are a lot of people right now that are thinking about getting into the real estate into their portfolio.
Sure.
But they don't want to do it, and that's where you come in.
It's really hard. I know there are some pitfalls if you don't know what you're doing. The downside is always money, right? If you make a mistake, it typically will cost you some form of money. And I've made mistakes early on, and luckily they were never major significant costs. But I think the idea is if you can find competent people that can help you, you're going to minimize the potential of that downside.
Well, let's say you do get somebody like you that's working with you. The upside of also all of this, besides your knowledge and being able to guide them, is that once they do purchase whatever it is that they are starting to buy, whether it's a apartment building or a home or whatever, you are going to also help them with creating that tenant.
Oh, absolutely.
That's another thing that's really important, to know that they have that, and that that they don't have to find that also themselves.
Yeah, I think the really big important part of the process is, and I tell this to owners that are first timers, because we have quite a few, and I tell them, this isn't a situation where you just come and hand everything off to us and say, Mike, let me know once a year how everything's going. I don't think, at least in my opinion, if somebody is an investor in real estate, I want them to be a part of the process, because it helps them learn, it helps them know what's going on, and it also helps them to be a part of the decision-making process too. And then we have better outcomes that way, as opposed to just having it rely on us. And
I like the idea of also, if anybody who is thinking about doing something like this and you haven't yet, doing it someplace close to home too. Like you said,
Agreed.
You can see it, and you know, if you haven't done this before, it's really probably better off anyway. And obviously, to be able to see it, it's tangible, and be able to know that it's there too, and doing well as well. What are your final words for today?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. If you're in a position where you're looking to potentially invest in real estate, I think it's important that you find a local expert. If it's in Phoenix, luckily through my years here, I've come up with some really great people that we can guide you to. It doesn't cost you anything. I'm happy to give you referrals if you need them and help you along. I mean, that's really what we're here, is to help people. It's not about you have to hire us. It's that we're going to help you either way.
It's about educating them.
That's right.
Their phone number is 480-626-4062. It's Denali, Arizona.com. Write the number down, 480-626-4062.